So tonight's topic is evidence, right? What is it? What's the difference between evidence and proof, and how does that apply to our what we do here in the Fortean world? And yeah, it was actually inspired by something right there. That guy right there, Donnie, said last week when we were talking with Ray. You made a very astute observation, which is that we were using evidence in two different ways, right? So I would like to point out that what was happening is, because we had a difference of opinion as to what constitutes evidence, that led to a lot of the conversation. So what is evidence? Like, what does the word actually mean, right? Evidence is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. Okay. What is proof? That's the second part of this. Proof is evidence or argument establishing or helping to establish a fact or the truth of a statement. Now, that may seem like I'm saying the same thing, but I'm not. And these are, of course, the official definitions. These aren't the ones I'm creating for my own nefarious ends. They are evidence and proof are synonyms, but they don't mean the exact same thing. Evidence essentially is data, right? It is data that allows you to go towards a direction, right? Proof, though, is the thing that establishes a thing as a fact. Let's use a metaphor of a potential murder, right? I won't attach any names to it because I don't want to speak that out in the universe, because honestly, the more I get into this, the more I'm like, you know what? Our words have meaning. But let's say this hypothetical person that Donnie and I would know, right? Let's say we talk to him every day, we work with him every day, and he disappears. And before he disappeared, he told us, hey, I feel like my life is in danger, right? Well, if we don't see him for 3 days, we would call the police and say, look, we're worried that our friend has been murdered because he claimed that his life was in danger and we haven't seen him, right? So they go and do a welfare check. They go into his house and they find a knife covered in blood, a very large pool of blood, and drag marks leading towards the back door. Now, can we say that's proof of his murder? No, we can't. We don't know that he's dead. We don't know that that's his blood at this point. But what we have is evidence, right? We have evidence supporting our fear that he may have been murdered. We just don't have proof of his murder. Now, if the blood is tested and it comes back and says, yes, this is his blood, we still don't know that he's dead, and we still don't know that what happened was a homicide. What we have is evidence supporting our proposition that he was murdered. If we find his body in the backyard or somewhere else, and the stab wound from that same knife is in his back, we now have proof that he was murdered, because we have the corpus delicti, and we now have a wound that he could not have self-inflicted.
Can I try to make an alternative explanation of your point?
Sure.
So evidence would be, therefore, based off what you're saying, would be something that increases the likelihood of something being true, whereas proof is something that establishes something to be 100% true.
Correct. Actually, Glenn literally said the same thing.
Okay.
Essentially, the difference between evidence and proof is that evidence indicates and proof establishes. Those are the key words. So, 100%. Evidence is just data. It is information that you can use to again indicate, whereas proof is the establishing. Again, the same way that we had evidence of a murder, but we did not have proof of the murder. Once you have the body, you then have the proof of the murder, right? You've now established the murder as a fact versus a theory. By the way, Danny Stanton would like to point out that he would not care about the hypothetical friend disappearing for 3 days.
Wait, was there a real? Wait, which one of our friends disappeared?
hypothetical friend. I'm not putting a name to this. Are you kidding me?
All right, I'll
I don't
ask
want
you
that
after,
out in the universe.
I'll ask you after we get off the air. I was like, wait a minute, is this an actual friend we're referring to? Who is this?
No. Danny's just being silly.
No, I'm getting worried.
Yeah. Don't be worried about hypothetical friend. Hypothetical friend will always be around if we need him for a story or metaphor. So that's sort of the key element here, right? And I imagine a lot of y'all have probably had similar conversations with people like, well, there's no evidence. No, we don't have proof, meaning we don't have the body, right? But we do have evidence. Now, obviously I'm speaking specifically about Bigfoot, but this works for all Forteana, right? We do have evidence. What we don't have necessarily is proof. And in some cases, there is question as to what the evidence is actually saying, which is why we need to have vigorous and robust debates about the evidence, right? One thing Ray said that was absolutely correct, again, I have to give him credit, is we cannot say that we know for a fact that the trackways that are found are Bigfoot, or that, the scat handprint, all the evidence that we would use to support a Bigfoot or the existence of a biological Bigfoot, we can't actually say are definitively Bigfoot, but we don't have. So he's 100% correct.
Real quick, just for the people listening at home and for people in the chat, if you're not sure what Jason is talking about, we are referencing the previous episode we did together.
Yeah,
it was called "Why Bigfoot Not Aliens." It premiered about 7 days ago. And if you're not sure what the conversation was, you can always go back and check that out. So
we're just using that as a point. Because again, and really we wouldn't have even done it if Donnie hadn't made that observation. But it was such a great observation. I'm like, we should have this conversation because if you're in this field, you have had this conversation with people, right? So it was really it's Donnie's fault we're talking about this. But yeah, like he makes a valid point, which is we can't say those things are from Bigfoot. However, deductive reasoning allows us to say, again, this is Bigfoot. All these things are theories. We have sightings of a creature that we have archaeological records of, right? With fossils. It matches the description of what people are seeing. And then what you would expect a creature matching that description to leave as far as evidence is what we're finding. Now, I can't say that the tracks are made by Bigfoot, but I can say that those tracks correlate with both location and expectation of what a creature like Bigfoot would leave. Therefore, it is still evidence for Bigfoot. Because now, if you want to say they're not evidence of Bigfoot, you need to come up with another argument as to what they are. Where are they coming from? Which, by the way, I've always said I'm open to. If you can show me that all of these trackways are left by some kind of weird bear, like if bears can receive some kind of injury or whatever, okay, great. But you got to show that. You have to be able to explain that. The problem is there is no solid explanation for footprints that are at least verified to be made from an organic creature. We do know what stompers look like. We've got plenty of evidence of what a stomper does. And then we have things that does match what you would expect a biological entity to leave. So do we have proof? No. We do have evidence, and deductive reasoning allows us to say that's evidence of this. Now, one other point is the evidence we have does not necessarily allow us to conclude that Bigfoot is a naturally occurring biological entity, like a dog or cat. We don't have something that supports that as proof. What we do have is we can theorize about it. Right? Which is why I've always said I'm open to the idea that maybe all of the Bigfoot is some sort of paranormal phenomena, and that when he becomes physical and tangible, he also becomes biological. I'm okay with that. Right? So it is what it is. And we'll definitely be taking questions after this segment. One other thing that came up, and I ran across this guy's TikTok. I actually follow him on TikTok. He's a great guy. Marcel C. He's more about apologetics. He talks about the appeal to ignorance fallacy. I have a link to the actual video if you got TikTok, it's in the link below if you want to take a look at it. Mostly, he used a phrase that I really, really liked, which is called intellectual target practice, and we kind of saw that with the conversation with Ray as well, where the goalposts keep moving, right? Where you make a point, and then they move the goalpost over here, and what you do, and this is what I did. You follow that target to the other position. You never actually deal with that first point. So essentially, your opponent is getting you to debate, and they're never debating.
Yeah.
Right. And they essentially set up their worldview or their assumptions as the baseline assumption.
Well,
and essentially what the argument is, if you can't disprove them, then they must be right. But they keep moving the target over, so you never are allowed to prove your point.
So I was the referee in that match, in that debate between Jason and Ray. So I tried to maintain as much of an impartial stance as possible. One of the things I couldn't help notice that was the impetus for me making that point that you referred to earlier was that you guys, like, if this was like a boxing match or an MMA fight, like this debate, like if we were to use that metaphor, you guys were like running around in circles in the ring. And I'm just like, come on, guys, get in the middle of the ring and start trading. Right? Because it seemed like you guys were arguing different points.
Right. And that's exactly my issue here is that because he kept moving the goalposts, right? One moment that's really for indicative of that was when he was the premise was, why Bigfoot, not aliens, right? And I make the point that with extraterrestrials, right, with the supposed aliens, there's a lot of evidence indicating that these are not necessarily what they're claiming to be. And I point out that the only real evidence anyone has these things are from another world is their say so. It's like, well, they told me they come from this planet. My point is, those entities can lie to you. And he then comes back and says, but someone can lie about a 10-foot tall primate, right? The problem is
it's a different debate.
It's a different debate altogether.
Yeah.
He moved the goalpost because my point was not about what the witness was saying. It was about what the entity was saying.
Not totally his fault, though. The one thing I was disappointed in seeing in you, Jason, my friend, was that you did not attack. You spent way too much time defending, not enough time attacking.
Yes, I should have attacked.
I was let down a bit.
No, you're right. That's my failure. Again, my failure was I didn't call him out on the difference between evidence and proof. And I didn't call him out on the fact that he was consistently moving his goalpost.
See, when you and I debate, like, for example, the Hawaiian pizza debate, which I clearly won. I mean, I went on the attack. I went on the assault.
You did.
Right?
You did.
That's a different thing. Guys, check that out on Donny Joe Says Stuff.
Yes. Also go check that out because that was a great episode. I won. I definitely won that
man.
one.
You know what it was? Watching you and Ray was like watching the first Hoist Gracie Ken Shamrock match where they were just in the guard for like 2 hours. And people were like, someone do something. And eventually the ref everyone was getting bored and the ref just got in between. It's like, come on, guys, stand up and start training.
It's that meme of the guy with the stick pokes like, come on, do something.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a fair observation. Any other last thoughts on that before we move to actually the crowd? What everyone in the chat's thinking?
Real quick. So on the topic of people in the community trying to prove Bigfoot to the world, right?
Yeah.
What would you agree then that we got plenty of evidence of Bigfoot, but we don't have the proof, right? The Holy Grail, the thing that'll make the whole world see what Bigfoot exists. What would you consider to be the Holy Grail of proof for Bigfoot for the whole world to accept?
So this goes back to, that's a great question. Honestly, for me, I think it would go back to, you got to have corpus delicti. You've got to have the body. Because here's the thing, right? DNA evidence, like, again, my assumption is if it's leaving DNA, if it's leaving skin cells and skin oils, and that's what's being looked into right now, right? We have the technology for it now. My assumption is that it's a biological entity. But as Dean has pointed out, that doesn't necessarily require them to be exclusively biological all of the time. It could be that when a creature becomes paranormal, or an ethereal creature becomes material, it also becomes biological, and that may just take everything with it, meaning you've got skin cells, you've got DNA, you've got these things that can then be tested. So you would need a body, sadly, a dead body. Thank you for watching this clip from Jason McLean Questions Everything. If you liked it, please feel free to share this out, like, follow, and subscribe. And remember, we're live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you. We'll catch you in the next video.